As an added bonus, I'm going to decorate cookies on stage for you. So here we go. So I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago to two incredibly hardworking parents who bought their first business in 1974. And when I came around in 1977, the entrepreneurial spirit was well alive in our house. When my sister came around in 1979, my parents took over the family business of my grandfather, which was the expectation for my sister and I as we got older. And many Christmases of sitting at dining room tables doing payroll taxes and family vacations of bringing fax machines on the airplane with us, and my parents never traveling together ever, because they never could. They were always worried that something would happen to them. I decided that I was never interested in owning a small business of my own. So in 1995, I came to ISU, and I got my degree in elementary education. And I was happy. In 2000, I got my first job in District 87, where I've been ever since. And one day, I was at Elroy's with the principal where I teach, and we were playing darts, and we made a bet. The bet was, if I won, he was going to take my class for 2 hours on a Friday afternoon to make sure that I could get all of my papers graded and my newsletter made and all of those things. And so, and if he won, I had to bake for him. So I lost, and I spent the entire weekend baking these cookies for him, these cookies that I'm decorating for you right now. And I brought them to school, and I handed them to him, and he gave them to the secretaries of the school where I teach. And if you know anything about how an elementary school in the United States works, secretaries and the janitorial staff make the building run. And those two secretaries shared my cookies with secretaries in other buildings. And when that happened, I started doing cookies for orders. And so this was 2001. I've got to reposition. 2001. So during this time, when I was making cookies for all the other secretaries, I started selling cookies on eBay, which at the time there were very few regulations with eBay, and you could do things like that. So I sold cookies on eBay. I started a small business called cookiesbykelly.com, and I shipped cookies all over the United States, Alaska, Hawaii, and coordinated with FedEx and making sure that cookies weren't melting and everything was shipping and all of those things. And over 4 years, at the last point, I had been doing about 250 dozen cookies out of our house between Christmas or Thanksgiving and Christmas, and at which point my husband said, perhaps we should look for something else for your baking escapades. So we had some friends. Melanie, who was up here just a little while ago, owned Artisan in downtown Bloomington, and she said, there's this place called Pumpernickel's that closes at 2, and you could consider renting their kitchen. So we went and talked to them, and I asked if we could rent their kitchen, and they said, sure, no problem, but we might be for sale. So my husband, my mother, and I all went on vacation, and the entire time we were there, we talked about what would happen if they were for sale. Now remember, I had no interest in ever owning a small business ever. So my mother had long since retired, and she had lots of experience, and she knew that I could do it, working hard, and all of those things were things that I was able to do. So we came back from vacation, and we did a lot of research. I met with the Small Business Development Center at ISU. My mother sat outside in front of the bakery, which at the time was Pumpernickel's, for an entire week and counted the number of people who walked by and the number of people who went in. We decided, when they finally said that they were for sale, that we were going to actually buy the location. So that on October 31st of 2005, we decided to close on the equipment and take over the lease, and we closed for 2 weeks, and we remodeled and created menu items and did all of the things that went along with starting a business. And I had very little experience with restaurants, and decided to open on November 15th of 2005. And I took the first day I opened, and I took the day off of school, and we opened the doors, and it was a horrible experience. I had practically no customers, and I was absolutely terrified that we had made a huge mistake. And this went on for quite a while. I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go to the bakery, bake all of the things, single batch at a time. And 2 weeks in, I rolled over to my husband at 4:30 in the morning. I said, "We just made the biggest mistake of our lives." But he decided that he was going to take things into his own hands, so he got himself onto a radio interview at 5 o'clock in the morning on one of the local radio stations and brought cinnamon rolls with him, and they ate them on camera, or on the radio. And when that happened, lots of people listened, and when they listened, things started to change. We got pretty busy, and things picked up. One of the newspapers came and did a report for us, and 2 years later, we were super busy, and everything was really, really good. At this point, my husband decided to open another business called Mathy. So we added to our second life of being a business. I continued to teach throughout that entire time. And we got really involved in the community. From the very beginning, I had been involved in the Downtown Bloomington Association, and it was probably the best choice that we ever made. Statistically, for restaurants, 5 years in, statistically, 80% of all small businesses, restaurants specifically, close. When that happened and we made that mark, it was a true milestone for me. And again, I kept my full-time job, my husband kept his full-time job, and we kept going, and everything was kind of going along the way that we had expected. We fast forward to a really great staff that we've been able to keep for a very long time. And at the 9-year mark, we purchased a store called Grafalia's Airy, also in downtown Bloomington, and my husband and I rebranded that and renamed it Red Raccoon Games, which just is about to celebrate its 4-year anniversary. And just in July of 2017, I purchased another store, an icon in the community called the Decorator's Grocery, which is on Linden Street here in Bloomington. An icon that had been open since 1977, and it was a store that was ready to close because the owners had gotten older and were ready to close, and it was one of those things that I was not interested in allowing to happen. So in all of this, in opening all of these businesses, in taking a business or a household where I was never interested in owning my business and turning my passion into something that I was interested in, I've learned that the community that we live in is the most important part, and we've been able to use that community to make it a better place. And if you love the community you live in, your community will love you back. Thank you.